At 69, long after the silver and black had faded into memory, Ken, the Snake Stabler, became more than a quarterback. He became a confession. The cheers were gone, the stadium lights were dark, yet the truths he carried still burned within him. Stabler was the outlaw of the gridiron, the left-handed artist who turned broken plays into miracles. Fans adored his calm grin, his gambler's nerve, and his ability to freeze time with one perfect throw. To Oakland, he was not just a quarterback. He was the heartbeat of a renegade empire. Yet behind that charm lived grudges, betrayals, and scars that he never let go. His life was a contradiction. He won with chaos but clashed with authority. He carried the Raiders to glory, yet left in bitterness. He lived with laughter, but privately he remembered every slight. For every victory, there was a wound. For every cheer, a silence that lingered. Why would a champion never forgive? Why did the Snake, even at the end of his life, still hold on to hidden truths? The answers are found in moments that defined him. Moments of conflict with coaches, betrayals from owners, humiliations by rivals, and the cost of a lifestyle that no one could outrun. Tonight, we uncover those 5 hidden truths. The truths Ken Stabler revealed only in the twilight of his life. The truths that explain not only his greatness, but also his darkness. Ken Stabler was born in Foley, Alabama, in 1945. He grew up in a world where football was more than a pastime. In the South, the game was woven into daily life, a measure of identity and pride. Stabler's left-handed throws caught attention early. His spirals were tight, natural, effortless. Coaches said he was born to play quarterback. At the University of Alabama, he came under the command of Bear Bryant. Bryant was legendary for discipline and control. He demanded order in every practice, every play, every life decision. Stabler thrived under pressure but resisted authority. That tension shaped him from the start. He respected Bryant's genius, but fought against the cage of strict obedience. The conflict between freedom and order would shadow him throughout his career. When the Oakland Raiders drafted him, he found the team that mirrored his own soul. The Raiders were renegades. They wore silver and black like armor, built their empire on grit and defiance. Stabler slid into their culture perfectly. Calm eyes, fearless decisions, and a gambler's instinct made him their leader. He was more than a quarterback. He was the heartbeat of an outlaw army. His legend grew through moments that defined a decade. In 1974, with seconds remaining, he launched a desperate throw to Clarence Davis against Miami. Surrounded by defenders, Davis caught the ball in what became known as the Sea of Hands. That single play embodied the Snake's spirit. Reckless, fearless, and unforgettable. Fans adored him for more than victories. They adored him because he lived as he played. He smoked, he drank, he laughed loud, and then walked into stadiums and delivered brilliance. To working-class fans, he was one of them. A man who carried their defiance onto the field. To rivals, he was the nightmare who never blinked in pressure. But conflicts ran deep. Coaches wanted structure. Stabler thrived on chaos. Teammates were divided. Some swore by his leadership, others doubted his preparation. The league office disliked his swagger, seeing in him the face of Raider rebellion. He was too loose, too unpolished, too dangerous for the image the NFL wanted to project. These contradictions built the man. He could study defenses like a surgeon, yet toss aside the playbook when instinct whispered something better. He lived as both an artist and an outlaw. To Raider Nation, he was perfect. To the establishment, he was a problem. And to Stabler himself, he was a man constantly at war with the world around him. The stage was set for grudges that would define him, from college clashes with Bear Bryant, to bitter battles with Al Davis, to the humiliations in Houston. Stabler's story was not just one of victories. It was a story of wounds, of betrayals that lingered, and of rivalries that carved themselves into his soul. The Snake's hidden truths were born in that fire. Before Ken Stabler ever wore the silver and black of the Raiders, he was a young quarterback at the University of Alabama. His coach was Bear Bryant, one of the most powerful figures the college game had ever known. Bryant was a legend who built dynasties through discipline, structure, and absolute control. He wanted his players to act like soldiers. For many, his system was the only path to greatness. For Stabler, it felt like chains. Bryant recognized Stabler's gift. The left-handed kid from Foley, could throw a football with a grace that made crowds gasp. But Bryant also saw something dangerous. Stabler was independent, restless, unwilling to bend to strict authority. To Bryant, that was chaos. To Stabler, it was freedom. Their relationship began with mutual respect, but soon turned into conflict. The first cracks showed when Stabler broke team rules. Missed curfews and late nights clashed with Bryant's standards. The punishment was harsh. In 1966, Stabler was suspended for a full season. The decision humiliated him. But it also planted a seed of rebellion that would never die. Bryant demanded order. Stabler wanted instinct. That divide became permanent. When Stabler returned in 1967, he played with defiance. In a rain-soaked game against Auburn, he delivered his most iconic college moment. The field was a swamp, visibility was poor, and the Tide's season hung in the balance. Stabler scrambled 47 yards through defenders for the winning touchdown. It became known as the run in the mud. Fans roared. Newspapers celebrated, and Stabler cemented his place in Crimson Tide history. Yet to Bryant, the play represented everything he could not control. It was instinct, not structure. Improvisation, not order. The tension never faded. Even as Bryant praised him publicly, Stabler felt the distance. The coach wanted discipline above all. The quarterback wanted freedom above all. Their bond cracked under that weight. Years later, even after winning in the NFL, Stabler admitted he had never fully forgiven the experience. He respected Bryant, but he also resented him. He believed the coach had tried to break him instead of trusting him. That wound carried into Stabler's professional life. Every time he ignored a playbook for a risky throw, every time he trusted his gut instead of the system, he was fighting Bryant's shadow. Stabler's career in Oakland was shaped by that defiance. He wanted to prove that instinct could defeat structure, that chaos could triumph over order. To him, freedom on the field was not only a style, it was survival. The cold truth is this: Ken Stabler never reconciled with Bear Bryant in his heart. He honored him in public, but privately he admitted the scar remained. Bryant was the first authority who demanded obedience when there was none to give. Their clash was not about talent, it was about philosophy. The snake was born in that moment of rebellion. The day he decided he would never bow to control again was the day he set the course for the rest of his life. And that hidden truth lived in him until the end. If Bear Bryant was the first figure to try to control Ken Stabler, Al Davis was the one who hurt him the most. Davis was not just an owner, he was the architect of the Raiders, a visionary who believed in rebellion against the league. For years, he and Stabler seemed like kindred spirits. Both lived for defiance. Both hated the establishment. Both thrived in chaos. But in the end, their similarities were what destroyed them. In the early 70s, Stabler was Davis's dream. The snake carried the Raider identity with ease. He was calm when the clock ticked down, fearless in the clutch, and willing to gamble when no one else would. John Madden trusted him. Teammates rallied behind him, and Davis praised him as the perfect leader for the silver and black. Together, they built an empire of intimidation. Stabler's throws and Davis's vision gave Oakland its swagger. But Davis was not a man who shared control. He demanded loyalty to the organization above all else. Contracts, behavior, even public words were expected to serve his empire. Stabler valued loyalty, but his loyalty was earned, not forced. Their relationship began to fray over money, preparation, and respect. Davis believed players were replaceable. Stabler believed champions deserved trust. By the late 70s, the fracture was obvious. Stabler had delivered a Lombardi Trophy in 1977. He had taken brutal hits, sacrificed his body, and still carried the team. Yet Davis questioned his commitment. He pointed to the lifestyle. The nights out. The cigarettes. He wondered aloud if the snake's edge had dulled. For Stabler, it was betrayal. He had given everything. Yet the man who should have defended him treated him as expendable. The breaking point came in 1980. Davis stunned the football world by trading Ken Stabler to the Houston Oilers for Dan Pastorini. To Raider fans, it felt like treason. To Stabler, it was a dagger. The team he had defined, the family he had led, had cast him aside, and it was Davis who pulled the trigger. That trade hurt more than any sack. Stabler had been the heartbeat of Oakland, the man who delivered their first championship. To be discarded confirmed his worst fears. In the NFL, loyalty meant nothing when power was on the line. Publicly, Stabler kept his cool. Privately, he admitted the wound would never close. He carried bitterness for the rest of his life. The irony was cruel. Davis and Stabler were mirrors of each other, both rebels who wanted to fight the system. Yet they could not coexist. Davis wanted total control. Stabler demanded freedom. Neither man would bend. The cold truth is that Ken Stabler never forgave Al Davis. Their feud lived on long after the trade. For the Snake, Davis was not just an owner. He was the man who betrayed loyalty. The man who proved that even in a family of outlaws, power came before trust. The grudge remained until Stabler's final days. In the 1970s, no matchup defined the NFL more than the battles between the Oakland Raiders and the Pittsburgh Steelers. At the heart of those wars stood two quarterbacks who symbolized opposing worlds. Terry Bradshaw, of the Steelers, was the golden-armed leader of a dynasty built on structure, discipline, and one of the greatest defenses in history. Ken Stabler of the Raiders was the outlaw gambler, a left-handed artist who thrived when the play broke down. Their rivalry became more than competition. It became philosophy. Bradshaw collected rings, trophies, and the admiration of the establishment. Stabler carried swagger, comebacks, and the devotion of Raider Nation. The contrast was stark. Bradshaw was the league's chosen son. Stabler was the rebel who lived by instinct. When they met, it was not only a clash of teams, it was a collision of identities. The rivalry began in the playoffs of 1972, in a game that still echoes through history. With seconds remaining, Bradshaw fired a desperate throw. The ball deflected, Franco Harris snatched it, and the immaculate reception was born. The Steelers advanced. The Raiders were stunned. Stabler had come off the bench and scored a go-ahead touchdown moments earlier, only to see fate and controversy crush him. That memory haunted him. The wounds deepened in 1974 and 1975. Twice in a row, Stabler's Raiders faced Bradshaw's Steelers in the AFC Championship. Twice they lost. The steel curtain suffocated the Snake. Each defeat reinforced the dynasty of Pittsburgh and the frustrations of Oakland. Finally, in 1976, vindication arrived. Stabler and the Raiders broke through, defeating the Steelers in the AFC Championship and storming to their first Super Bowl title. For the Snake, it was redemption. He had finally toppled the dynasty that haunted him. Yet the victory was not the end. Bradshaw's Steelers went on to collect 4 Lombardi trophies. Stabler finished with 1. The contrast became part of his story forever. What cut deepest was not personal hatred. Off the field, Stabler and Bradshaw shared laughs and respect. But to Stabler, Bradshaw represented everything he fought against. Bradshaw was discipline rewarded. Stabler was instinct questioned. The league celebrated Bradshaw as the model of greatness, while Stabler remained the outsider, praised for flair but criticized for inconsistency. The comparison gnawed at him. The cold truth is this: Ken Stabler never fully escaped Terry Bradshaw's shadow. Each time fans recalled the quarterbacks of the 70s, Bradshaw's dynasty came first. Stabler's artistry was unforgettable, but history measured greatness in rings. For the Snake, the rivalry with Bradshaw was more than a scoreboard. It was a reminder that instinct could win games, but order often won championships. He respected Terry Bradshaw. He even admired his toughness, but deep inside, he never forgave the scars those playoff wars left behind. The rivalry did not die with the final whistle. It lived in memory, etched into his legacy, a wound disguised as admiration. When Al Davis traded Ken Stabler to the Houston Oilers in 1980, the decision cut him deeply. Oakland had been his kingdom, the silver and black his armor. To be sent away felt like exile, yet Stabler told himself that Houston could be a fresh start. What awaited him was not renewal, but bitterness. For the Snake, the Oilers became a reminder that loyalty in the NFL was fragile, and that betrayal often came dressed as opportunity. At first, the move looked promising. Houston had Earl Campbell, a running back built like a tank who could plow through entire defenses. Pairing Campbell's raw power with Stabler's poise seemed like a formula for dominance. Fans dreamed of balance, thunder on the ground, and precision through the air. On paper, it looked like destiny. For Stabler, It was also a chance to prove Al Davis wrong, to show the world he was not finished. The reality struck quickly. The Oilers' system demanded structure, timing, and rigid adherence to schemes. Stabler was an improviser, a quarterback who trusted instinct more than diagrams. The coaches never fully trusted his rhythm. Plays became predictable, and the Snake's magic began to fade. His numbers fell, his body ached, and his patience thinned. What had been billed as a revival turned into a slow decline. The whispers grew louder. Critics who once celebrated his daring now pointed to his lifestyle. They talked about cigarettes, late nights, and fading sharpness. In Oakland, those quirks had been forgiven because he won. In Houston, they became ammunition. Instead of praising his leadership, the Oilers treated him as a liability. Stabler, once the fearless general of a Super Bowl champion, was reduced to a scapegoat. The most painful blow came in the 1980 playoff game. Fate set him against his old team, the Raiders. It should have been a chance for redemption. Instead, it was humiliation. The Oilers collapsed, Stabler looked out of rhythm, and Oakland celebrated, watching his former brothers in silver and black stand across from him while he stumbled in a strange uniform tore at his soul. That day confirmed that Houston would never feel like home. After just 2 seasons, the Oilers discarded him. The promise of a fresh chapter ended in rejection. For Stabler, it was not only professional failure. It was betrayal. He had given his body, risked his health, and carried the weight of expectations. Yet he was cast aside like yesterday's news. The truth burned cold. Stabler never forgave the Houston Oilers. To him, they were the franchise that stripped away his dignity at the twilight of his career. They reduced a legend to a transaction. His time in Houston became a cautionary tale, a reminder that in professional football, numbers mattered more than loyalty, and business erased memory. For the rest of his life, he carried that bitterness. The Oilers were not simply another team on his resume. They were the betrayal that confirmed his darkest fear, that even legends could be disposable. For all the grudges Ken Stabler carried, the fiercest rival he faced was not Bear Bryant, not Al Davis, not Terry Bradshaw, and not the Houston Oilers. It was himself. The Snake lived hard, and he never apologized for it. To the fans, that lifestyle was part of the legend. To teammates, it made him magnetic. Yet over time, it became the truth that shaped and scarred his legacy more than any opponent ever could. In the 1970s, Stabler embodied cool. He could spend nights in bars with music blaring and smoke hanging in the air, then walk onto the field the next day and dissect defenses with uncanny precision. Reporters wrote about him scribbling plays on cocktail napkins. Stories of cigarettes in one hand and a playbook in the other became part of the myth. Raider Nation embraced it because it matched the outlaw image of the team. He was living proof that chaos could coexist with brilliance. But the cost was real. Each late night carved into his body. Each drink took a little sharpness from his edge. Each cigarette stole a little more of his endurance. Coaches noticed. Al Davis questioned his conditioning. The Oilers used his habits as evidence against him. Even friends began to wonder if the lifestyle that made him unique was also eroding the greatness within him. By the late 70s, cracks began to show. He still delivered clutch comebacks, still froze defenders with his calm eyes, but consistency slipped away. His body absorbed punishment, and recovery grew harder. The NFL demanded constant discipline, and Stabler refused to change. The very spirit that made him beloved was also shortening his reign. The most painful truth was how it shaped perception. Terry Bradshaw became the golden boy of order, the face of 4 Super Bowls. Stabler became the outlaw hero of 1 title, remembered for flair but judged for flaws. The league never fully embraced him. To sponsors, he was too unpredictable. To historians, he was brilliant but flawed. To himself, he was a man trapped in the image he had created. After retirement, the consequences sharpened. His body carried decades of punishment. His memory faltered. His health declined. In 2015, Ken Stabler died from colon cancer at the age of 69. Later studies revealed he had suffered from CTE, a disease caused by repeated head trauma. The very game that defined him, combined with the life he chose, had taken a devastating toll. Yet even in his final years, there was defiance. Friends recalled him laughing, smiling, telling stories as if the weight of pain was just another joke to carry. He lived on his own terms, even if those terms cost him years. That duality was both his triumph and his tragedy. The cold truth is this: Ken Stabler's greatest battle was against himself. He never escaped the shadow of his choices. He never outran the consequences of living fast and free. Fans adored the Snake for his freedom. The man behind the myth, however, carried the burden of knowing that his fiercest rival was always in the mirror. When people think of Ken Stabler and John Madden, they remember glory. Together, they created some of the most iconic moments in Raiders history. Madden trusted the Snake in ways few coaches ever did. He let him improvise, let him gamble, let him turn broken plays into theater. To the outside world, they looked like perfect partners. But inside that relationship, there was tension that never fully disappeared. Madden believed in Stabler's genius, yet he also struggled with the recklessness that came with it. He watched his quarterback win games with impossible throws, then lose others with the same daring instincts. For Madden, the contradiction was exhausting. For Stabler, the questions cut deep. He wanted trust without conditions, but even Madden sometimes wavered. The friction peaked in moments when discipline was needed. Madden could never quite control Stabler's lifestyle. The late nights, the cigarettes, the attitude of freedom clashed with the responsibility Madden tried to uphold. It was not betrayal, but it was disappointment. For Stabler, those doubts from his most trusted ally stung more than words from any critic. The truth is subtle. Stabler and Madden loved each other, yet they carried the weight of an unspoken rivalry. One wanted to harness chaos, the other wanted to ride it without reins. That hidden struggle shaped the Raiders as much as their victories did. The cold truth. Even with Madden, the coach who believed in him more than anyone, Ken Stabler never felt completely understood. And perhaps that was the Snake's fate. To be admired, to be celebrated, but never fully tamed, even by those closest to him. Ken Stabler's story is not only about victories and defeats, it is about contradictions that defined him as a man and as a quarterback. His grudges against Bryant, Al Davis, Terry Bradshaw, and the Houston Oilers were not isolated events. They formed a pattern, a reflection of his lifelong struggle between freedom and control, instinct and order, loyalty and betrayal. Even his battle with his own lifestyle fit that theme. He lived as he played, daring and unrestrained, and in the end, it was both his greatest gift and his deepest wound. From his earliest days in Alabama, the conflict was set. Bryant demanded discipline. Stabler demanded freedom. That battle never ended, even when he left college behind. Every throw across his body, every last-second gamble, carried the echo of that rebellion. He was proving to the world, and to himself, that instinct mattered as much as structure. In Oakland, he found a team that mirrored his spirit. The Raiders thrived on chaos, swagger, and defiance. Stabler was their perfect leader. He made the impossible look casual, winning games that seemed lost. Yet within that same family, betrayal struck. Al Davis loved him when he won but discarded him when he questioned his commitment. The lesson was cruel. Even in a band of outlaws, power mattered more than loyalty. The rivalry with Terry Bradshaw deepened that wound. Stabler's artistry was unforgettable. Yet history remembers championships. Bradshaw had 4 rings, Stabler only 1. Every time fans debated greatness, the comparison returned. Stabler knew he could match Bradshaw throw for throw, but the world judged by trophies. That rivalry became a shadow he never escaped. It reminded him that in football, genius and instinct were celebrated, but order and discipline often brought more glory. His time in Houston turned bitterness into truth. The Oilers promised a new chapter but gave him disappointment. Coaches mistrusted him. Critics mocked him. And fate forced him to lose against the Raiders, the team that had once been his kingdom. To Stabler, Houston confirmed what he had feared since the day Al Davis traded him. Legends were expendable. Loyalty was a myth. Beyond the field, his greatest rival was himself. Stabler lived like a character out of a novel. He smoked, he drank, he chased life as hard as he chased victories. Fans loved him because he was real, because he carried their own flaws and defiance. But the cost came due. His body broke, his health declined, and the very game he loved left him with scars that time could not heal. When he died in 2015, the diagnosis of CTE revealed the final cruel truth. The game that gave him everything also took too much away, and yet, despite the scars, Ken Stabler remains one of the most beloved figures of his era. To Raider Nation, he was the perfect embodiment of their identity. He proved that beauty could be found in chaos, that instinct could win championships, and that charisma could inspire loyalty even in defeat. His victories were dramatic, his losses unforgettable, and his story cinematic in every sense. His legacy is not measured only in statistics. It is measured in the way fans still tell stories of the sea of hands, the way opponents still remember his calm eyes in the huddle, the way teammates still speak of his leadership. He represented a style of football that was raw, human, and unpredictable. In an age where the league wanted polished stars, Stabler reminded everyone that greatness could come from rebellion. The cold truth is that Ken Stabler's life was defined as much by grudges as by glory. His rivalries shaped him. His betrayals scarred him. His choices haunted him. But those same elements made him unforgettable. He was not perfect, and that is why he endures. Fans saw themselves in him, flaws and all. He was proof that heroes are not carved from stone. They are built from contradictions, from victories and mistakes, from loyalty and bitterness. Today, when people speak of the Snake, they speak with a mixture of admiration and melancholy. They remember his brilliance, his laughter, his defiance, and they also remember the price he paid. His story is a reminder that football legends are not gods. They are men who lived hard, fought fiercely, and carried truths that the world rarely saw. For Ken Stabler, those truths were hidden for years, but in the end they revealed the man behind the myth. Ken Stabler's story is not only about football. It is about life lived on the edge, about the beauty and the cost of freedom. He was a champion, a rebel, a leader, and a man who carried scars that never healed. His 5 hidden truths remind us that behind every highlight reel, there are shadows. Behind every victory, there are wounds that never close. So now the question is yours. Which truth struck you the most? Was it his clash with Bear Bryant that shaped his defiance? Was it his feud with Al Davis that revealed the brutality of business? Was it his rivalry with Terry Bradshaw that haunted him for decades? Or was it the betrayal in Houston that confirmed his darkest fear? Perhaps it was the price of his own lifestyle. The truth that he could never outrun himself. Do you believe Ken Stabler was right to hold on to those grudges? Or do you think forgiveness could have changed his path? And when you look at his career, do you see the flaws first, or the genius that made him unforgettable? At NFL Hidden Truths, we uncover the stories the league often leaves untold. The rivalries, the betrayals, the scars that shaped legends. If you enjoyed walking through the shadows of Ken Stabler's life, subscribe now and join us as we reveal more of football's hidden past. This is where the golden age of the NFL comes alive again. Where heroes are human, where victories carry a cost, and where truth always waits beneath the surface. Ken Stabler's story is only one of many. Stay with us, because the next legend's hidden truths are waiting.